All right, we are live and we're doing a little bit of a Reds prospect Q&A. Of course, I could not have anybody else with me than Clay Snowden, who kind of put this together. So Clay, thank you for doing this. Thank you for getting the Reds fans mobilized right now. And I want to say we are doing this in large part as a pick-me-up to the Cincinnati Reds community. I think we want to make them a little bit happier right now. I know fans are a little frustrated maybe that some of these prospects are still here. So we're going to answer questions on them and, talk about this system that we know is, become one of the best in the game. Definitely one of the better systems in baseball, despite graduating some really good players. So that's a testament to the depth that Kral's been able to build here. And I think now the next phase is identify which guys are a part of your future. And then when you do become buyers, hopefully this upcoming season, maybe even this off season, who are the prospects you might be moving off of? Yeah. Probably talk a little bit about all of that today.
Awesome. Well, anyone who's joining in right now, go ahead and drop your questions. Excuse me. Whoa. Wow. Sorry about that. Go ahead and drop your questions in the comments. We will work through those. I'll generate some questions too off the top of my head, bring up certain players that I see a lot of chatter about. As we know, other top 100s, other top prospect lists have been coming out. And I know that, I don't want to ask you about certain prospect lists and what you think of them, but I do want to explain to some people how some of them work. And a lot of people were upset that like Hector Rodriguez went from, back end of top 30s or whatever to 17 and not higher. And I've been saying this, but I wanted your opinion on it because I've just been saying it without even asking you about it. Like, it seems like those DSL type players who were not originally ranked high sneak into the back half of top 30. And then if they're really performing well, they just kind of jump to the middle of lists. And that's usually because they have enough time to adjust. Like, if they continue that trend, they can move them up the list. So like seeing somebody who's done really, really well in low A, who is kind of a person who kind of came off of a radar, is not going to jump up into the top 5 of list, right? Is that the same way that you evaluate them?
Yeah, I think it's fair. And there's a few different moving parts to it as well. I think, where was Hector Rodriguez on Baseball Americas?
I don't remember.
Pipeline tends to be a little bit slower with that. Like they like to definitely put a lot of stock into where you're drafted and how much you're signed for. And those things definitely matter. But I think there's like this level of, okay, you need to overcome and I'll get this question up so we don't miss it from Matt. Thank you very much, Matt, also for the donation there. I appreciate you big time. But I think the big part of it is you have to really prove that you are better than whatever scouts initially thought you were, which happens all the time. But even a Junior Caminero, like it took a while for people to come around to the fact that, hey, he is more than just a flyer, DSL lottery ticket type prospect. And I think for those guys that, don't sign for a ton, that are traded for a player of, lesser value, right? He's traded for Naquin. So I think there's a level of these prospect lists and evaluators saying, well, man, if they were willing to trade him for Naquin, like he can't be that good. So it almost, he gets the opposite of the benefit of the doubt. Like he's got to almost prove it further. So while I think if Hector Rodriguez signed for $1 million and was doing exactly what he's doing right now, he's a top prospect. So it's just, they've got more work to do to kind of buck what the original thought is, which I think is silly because it's such a crapshoot in the beginning with international free agency. These guys are 16, 17 years old. Most of them have been getting scouted since they're 13, 14. So like you can be wrong. Things could change. I think you really have to look at it holistically year by year. And if you just forget who he was traded for, what he signed for and all of that good stuff, and you just look at Hector Rodriguez, he's better than the 17th best prospect in the Red system.
We saw the exact same thing happen with Ellie. He was not on the list. Then he jumped exactly to 17 where Hector is right now. Now, I'm not saying he's the same player. We're going to talk about Rodriguez, but we want to get into this first question. Matt, thanks for the super chat. Super chats just allow us to see it. It comes up with a big highlighted question. So if you want your question read, for sure, you can drop it in a super chat, but we will get to other questions as well. This question: what do we have in Blake Dunn? What type of ceiling are we looking for? Those who are not familiar with Blake Dunn, if you're just tuning in, um, Blake Dunn was I'm pulling it up right now, a 15th round pick in 2021, 24 years old. Bounced around a couple of leagues this year, and he started in Dayton, hit really well, moved up to Chattanooga, and has since slashed 342, 426, 513
Yeah.
in Double A so far. He plays outfield. He has 7 home runs, 24 stolen bases. Aram, what can you tell us about Blake Dunn?
I think he's starting to, solidify himself as a potential big leaguer. I think you got to consider this guy. I can understand the hesitancy of kind of taking some of what he was doing with a grain of salt at the lower levels, because even though he's a 5th round pick, he's a college guy who was on the Cape, who's, still played high level competition. And, sometimes those guys, when they're older and more polished, which he is, he's a patient hitter, they can take advantage of lower level pitching. So we had to kind of take it with a grain of salt. But now we're seeing him, he's come down to earth a little bit late, but you're seeing him put up good numbers in Double A now. And you look at the speed and the power. There's more power than you would have thought. And I think the approach is a big sticking point as well, because in a positive way, where he's only chasing about 22% of pitches. He's going to walk. He runs well. He can play center field. He's got sneaky power, average contact rates. I think you have a chance for a big league regular here, which is pretty crazy. But the other side of it is, I think there's a very high probability he's a platoon guy. Demolishes left-handed pitching, demolishes it. And so if for whatever reason, upper level breaking balls get him, or, he's just not quite the same player against higher level competition, I do think that he's going to be a very valuable piece against left-handed pitching. He looks like he can be one of those guys that demolishes it, plays all 3 outfield spots, and can be a nice speedy platoon option. So I think this is a nice found piece here for the Cincinnati Reds. And I'm excited to kind of see what he does now with, more work at the upper levels, but he hits the ball harder than he gets credit for.
Yeah. And he has been one of those guys who, not many people thought of, obviously. And even when I was getting asked about him earlier in the year, I was like, 24-year-old college bat in, low A hitting pretty well. Like, let's just wait and see how it goes. Or high A hitting pretty well. And man, he just keeps hitting. So we're going to start from the top. Keep asking the questions in the chat. We will get to them. Sal Stewart, greater than Cam Collier. That is all. That's from Mr. Juan, one of Just Baseball's great supporters.
Yeah. I'll put that up right now. So this is always what stinks.
It's not as ridiculous as some people may think. I don't want your answer to come off any way of negative towards either one of these players, because I know you love them both.
That's the thing. I hate when this happens, where it's a guy that I, definitely was excited about and tried to put on a lot of people's radar, right after the draft. And then, all of a sudden now we have people getting really excited about him. And I don't want to be the guy that says pump the brakes. And now it seems like I'm lower on Sal Stewart, because I've loved Sal Stewart since the draft, but he is a year older than Cam Collier. So you think about it from this lens, Collier's got a full year to get to where Sal Stewart is. I think he's already flashed some things that Sal Stewart cannot do. There's a world where Sal Stewart is better. I'm going to get into him. I have some video and some cool things about Sal Stewart, but Cam Collier's a year younger, hits on the left side, a little bit more athletic, more power, which is crazy to already have more power as a guy who's a year younger and also, has more room to fill out. I think that's a big part of it as well. I also think he has a better hit tool potential. So right now, I think Sal Stewart's the more advanced hitter, but I think if you're looking at the upside, Cam Collier can be a different kind of beast. But I've really liked what I've seen from Sal Stewart, and I think his swing continues to get better. And there's some, I'm going to pull up a video on his swing real quick, but there's some things that I've really liked from what I've seen from him so far this year. And he's handled the high A promotion really well thus far.
Yeah. I turned on maybe his second game, and the first at bat I saw, he just drove a ball to right center it may have hit off the wall or right up against the wall, and man, it was just some easy looking power off of his bat. Do you want to go ahead and jump into Sal Stewart's video, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, so I have one right here actually that I love. So this swing,
that's what I'm talking about.
was it this one exactly?
Yeah.
So this is a really impressive swing to me, and one that says a lot about where Sal Stewart continues to go, because there's a little bit of like, when he was in high school, strong, I'll go pull side and do damage. I can turn on things pretty easily. And now you've got this guy that just gets to high A, seeing better breaking balls. And I mean, this is a 2-strike pitch, sitting breaking ball probably, and stays on it. And this is another example of just like his bat lives in the zone. So even being maybe half, millisecond of a second early, he's still able to keep the bat through the zone for so long that he drives it with authority the other way. Like that's impressive stuff. I think he's a guy that's going to really be able to use the whole field well. I don't know if the power is like plus and then some, but I think he's one of those guys that when you put him in Cincinnati too, because of his ability to drive the ball with above average power to all fields, I think he could be a monster. So this swing just really stood out to me. I think this is a dude that already has a really good feel to hit for his age and his profile.
So we had talked about him before his promotion throughout the year, and you were telling me, like, I know he's not the shiniest prospect name right now, putting up the best numbers of that first group in Daytona, but I really like what I'm seeing. And when I watched this at bat, I tweeted out this at bat because I was like, man, that is just impressive. But
yeah,
defensively, what do you think of Sal Stewart? Third base? Do you think he'll be a DH, first base, corner outfielder? Like, where do you think he ends up? I know it's hard to say. He's in single A, but
it's early, of course. I think he's got a shot to stick at third from what I've seen. I think he moves decently well for a guy that's 6'3", 220 pounds as a 19-year-old, but he's got a big arm that helps. And I think that's something that, I'm looking at like Kobe Mayo, who was viewed as a candidate with the Orioles to move off of third base. And then, worked on his footwork to get it to at least average. And he's got a cannon for an arm. So even when he's not in the best position to make the play, his arm can bail him out. I think Sal Stewart can do that too. I think he can stick at third and continue to get better there. And he's been getting plenty of reps there. It's pretty much almost exclusively been third with the occasional cameo at second base, which is, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. Moving on here. Somebody mentioned that you were the high guy on Williamson when the Reds got him. And at first that did not look very good, but he has started to pitch so well his past 8-9 starts or whatever it's been. He asked a question here about what's really changed since he's been promoted. I don't know if that's a pretty like deep dive thing to get into. I don't know if you had just knew anything off the top of your head that you had.
I can tell you that the stuff looks a lot more like the stuff that I loved when he was a prospect. His velocity was down a bit over the last.
Oh, it was bad.
And also the spin rates were down. The movement profiles were down. I don't know if that was injury related or, obviously the crackdown on sticky stuff maybe played a little bit of a part. Who knows? But like the reason why I liked him is it was 93 to 95 with extension at 6'6" from a tough release point that really jumps out of his hand. Then you've got that cutterish slider that's really sharp and a couple other, secondaries that at the time looked like they were solid. I thought the changeup was going to play better than it has. It has not played that well for him overall. And I thought that, the breaking ball would be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Fastball velocities come back. That slider, that cutterish slider is a legit pitch. And that alone is enough, I think, to help him get outs. And then he's, been able to just kind of mix and ride the hot hand with that third pitch. He's not what I thought he would be, but he's definitely, I think, trending back closer to what we were kind of imagining when we first saw him, with Seattle and some of the things I really liked about him. So you look at the pitch velocity by starts. I mean, when he's grabbing more 94s and sitting more 94, he does really well because he's a guy that likes to rest on that fastball and blow by you and then let the rest of the arsenal play off of it. The outings where you're seeing the 92, 93 averages, it's a little bit of a different story. So I think that's a big part of it too. And it's nice to see the velocity going up as the year's gone on.
Where do you I guess let's do tiers because I don't want you to put a number next to this and then regret what you say. But where would you rank the Reds farm system now? Post draft, post graduations. Let's go ahead and consider CES graduated,
Okay.
just because that's going to happen soon. Is this, I think that we can all agree they were tier 1 coming into the year. A lot of players have graduated. We don't need to run through all of them. Reloaded in the draft. Kind of hard to say right now because you have to look at all of the other ones. Are they tier 1, 2, 3, or 4? Let's just keep it 4 tiers.
Tier 1, 2, 3, or 4.
The Marlins are 4, Aram.
Yes. The Marlins are without a doubt 4. I'm trying to think like how many systems I'd very clearly take over theirs at this point. I would say bottom of tier 1.
Oh, you still think they're tier 1?
I think so because I like Louder. You think on it from this lens. So you got Louder. You've got, you still got Noel V. Marte. You've got Edwin Arroyo.
Connor Phillips. Chase Petty. Cam Collier. Sal Stewart.
Stewart.
Carlos Jorge.
I'd say either top of tier 2 or like bottom of tier 1. I still think it's up there.
Yeah.
I guess if we're splitting it into 4, I'd say top of tier 2.
Okay. How about within the division? So, I know you like the Cubs, a few players in there. Pirates has been kind of weird, hasn't it? Like how it's kind of trended and moved around with like which players 2 years ago we thought were at the top compared to now. And Cardinals and Brewers.
Taking them over the Cardinals system. Brewers are interesting now.
High floor guys.
Oh, they've got Frelick if you don't graduate him.
We're graduating him because we graduated CES.
Okay. Well, you've got Mizorowski. You've got Chorio. I'd still take the Red system over that system, though. I'd take the Red system over the Cardinal system. I think I'd take the Cubs system. Yeah. I'd definitely take the Cubs system. That one's getting crazy, man.
Yeah.
Between what you have with PCA, what you have with Cade Horton, what you have with Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara,
Brown.
Matt Shaw pick I loved. I think the Cubs have the edge there, but the Reds are number 2.
Yeah. Someone just said, "Get Luke Weaver off my team, please."
Yes, we can talk about that.
I agree. Yeah, give us your quick. Here's the deal with Reds Twitter. Half of them hate Luke Weaver. The other half is kind of like trying to make. At this point, it's fair to say excuses. Like he's a bad pitcher.
Yeah.
Why the hell do they keep running him out? Wouldn't you rather just give guys spot starts here and there to just see what happens? I mean, this guy's got almost a 7 ERA.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where it's I think they feel like a guy that's hung around in the big leagues is better than Levi Stout, just going out there who might not get out of 1 or 2 innings. It's hard to justify at this point. I don't disagree. I think he's the worst qualified starter in Major League Baseball at this point. So I would try something else. Hell, man, like I don't know why they wouldn't even just go to try to take a flyer on the Dallas Keuchel types. Like there's got to be some old reclamation project you could take a chance on. Like, I don't know. I think there's better options than Luke Weaver. That said, I don't think you should be running Cole or Connor Phillips out there. Look at what happened with Lyon Richardson. We thought he'd be a better option. I'm telling you, the big leagues is a different beast, man.
That was exactly what I wrote in the trade deadline piece. The reason why I wanted a starting pitcher was not because I wanted the Dylan Cease package to be shipped out of Cincinnati. I did not want to live in a world where you're fighting for a playoff spot and it's Richardson and Phillips, rookies coming on with all that added pressure. We don't know about those guys. We'll get into them in a bit. But yeah, Luke Weaver just stinks. We talked about Blake Dunn some.
We got the Julian Aguilar ceiling compared to Lyon Richardson and Connor Phillips. Another question from Matt. Thank you for the super chat.
Aguilar is one of my favorite pitchers to watch in the Red system. He's like one of those guys that it's one of those stupid like gut feel things that sometimes you just have to trust. Like I think that he may be better than a lot of these pitchers ahead of him in the rankings.
Yeah, I think I like him better than I like him better than Ryan Richardson, just because I think he's a better pitcher.
Oh, wow.
I think he's a more, like, in terms of upside, we're talking about.
Well, now,
Ryan throws fuzz, but
do you think Richardson is going to be a bullpen arm, though?
that's the thing. So we're talking about, like, ceiling. I think Aguilar can, I mean, with his pitch mix, man, like, it's several above average pitches. It's a mid-90s fastball. It's a slider that he spots consistently. That's dirty. It's a changeup that's inconsistent, but has shown the potential to be an above average pitch. And then that taste breaking curveball, like, at 22 years old, kind of doing what he's doing right now. And in Double-A, I mean, he's had that kind of blow up outing and then has settled in a little bit. And then the last one was fantastic. It's hard to make a case against this guy. And I think he's somebody that could end up jumping over some of the more higher risk bullpen arms. And he throws strikes, and he's thrown more strikes as the year's gone on. And that's a big thing too.
If you, not you personally, but you, a listener, have not watched him, go out there. If you have an MILB, pull up an old game. Just go find one of his starts in the game logs, find that game and watch him, and you'll see it. Like, it looks different than watching most players. Like, when I first saw him in Dayton, I was like, okay, this is a guy. Like, and I know you know what I'm talking about, Aram. When you see like a pitcher, a lot of times you have to filter through guys, and you're like, oh, this guy's not making it out of low A. But this guy is. And I think that he has a major league talent. Somebody asked the hardest question of the night, and I think you're ready to answer. I think we've warmed you up. Is Aram a Reds fan?
Who asked that one?
Ellie's Antics. Which is kind of funny for you, but yeah, Ellie De La Cruz's antics. Yes,
I'm an Ellie De La Cruz fan. I'm a Matt McClain fan. I'm a Spencer Steer fan. I'm an Andrew Abbott fan.
If you're gonna list the whole team, just say
so. No, it's kind of my point. I guess I'm a Reds fan.
Yeah.
I enjoy teams that are youthful and energetic and fun, and I enjoy fan bases that get well. First of all, I love to see the smaller market teams perform for their fan bases that have been deprived, and I think the Reds fit that bill. So I always root. We talked about this when I was with you. I always root for those types of teams, and I think that's probably because I grew up a Marlins fan, and it's cool to see what winning does for baseball in those communities. Obviously Marlins, they need everything. It's more than winning, but for Cincinnati, it's just like any basic investment in the team. Like, it's a baseball town, they'll show up. And I think you're seeing that just from the fact that the Reds are successful. They haven't even needed to invest in the team yet. If they actually invest in the team this offseason, I mean, it's going to be really special what I think they'll be able to do attendance-wise and in terms of building, generations of fans here, because this Reds team's not going anywhere anytime soon. No matter how ugly this season finishes, this team's set up to be good for the next half decade plus. They're in a really good spot.
Yeah. Those of you who don't know, Aram came to Lexington, and we hung out and went to the Reds game. It was his first time at Great American, in which Aram, I don't even think that we really talked for this. I called the TJ Friedel home run.
You did.
To the exact pitch.
Yes, you did.
And I didn't even think about that until the other day. I was like, wait.
That was crazy.
I literally said he's going to home run this pitch, and he did.
And he did. And he went deep.
But we want your your first impressions of Great American Ballpark. I know you are a fan of La Rosa's Pizza. People have trouble reading. Aram tweeted out that it's a great ballpark pizza. And people attacked him like they need to go to Italy to try this pizza.
Yeah, like I didn't.
We're talking about stadium pizza here, man.
Like, dude, the Marlins have Papa John's at their ballpark. Like, that's what we're comparing it to here. Or like, DiGiorno's out of the microwave. Like, it was better than any ballpark pizza I've had. No, I thought Cincinnati's. I thought that was a really cool ballpark. I put it. It's kind of like the farm system. Like, probably top of tier 2.
It's solid, yeah.
Great fans, great environment. Seats in the outfield are cool because you're not that far from home plate in that bandbox. I thought it was fun. I think it's a really, really cool ballpark. I enjoyed it. I definitely looking forward to going back.
How close is Connor Phillips to pitching. And before we dive in, I know
I have some
you
good
may have
video.
some video. Okay. So while you're pulling all that up, we had talked about Connor Phillips a lot this year. It's been a huge discussion on Twitter. I've been on the stance of I don't want to see him this year. I still think he has a lot to work on, but we want to hear it from you.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of, I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, which kind of tells you where we're at in the pitching prospect world and with a lot of different teams. But I'm not a big fan of bringing up one of your top arms, to help push you over the top out of the bullpen, unless you're the Atlanta Braves or, even the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like we talked about this with Walker Buehler on the show. Like when he was, one of their top pitching prospects and he had to come out of the bullpen when the Dodgers were trying to win the World Series as a rookie, like one, he really struggled with it. And two, it just was something that kind of like threw him out of his rhythm and he didn't really like it. I think if, it's all hands on deck and you're trying to make the playoffs, like you can justify it, but I don't think that makes sense. And then from the lens of like, how would Connor Phillips perform, in my opinion, if he went up to the big leagues? I don't know if it would be productive for his development at this point. Like and I'm going to play some video. There's some specific things he's working on. And I mean, dude, he just got racked out of a game his last outing, 1 1/3, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 Ks. This dude has walked 3 or more in the majority of his last 10 outings. He's walked multiple in almost every single outing over the last 2 months. Like, and that's not to knock Connor Phillips. He's 22 years old and also has had to deal with tacked ball back to regular ball in tighter strike zone in AAA. We've seen the flashes, which I think should give you the confidence, right? That start at Columbus where he goes 7 of 11 punch outs and you saw the fastball working, you saw the breaking ball working. Like those starts are encouraging, but I'm going to get into some of the video here. He has some things he still needs to work on. And I think he'd be very much in fight or flight at the big league level. I think he'd walk a lot of guys. There'd be the risk of putting, a lot of strain on the bullpen because you can say what you want about Luke Weaver. If he gets shelled, he's still going to be able to get outs to the degree of like backing his way into 4 or 5 innings. There's a chance Connor Phillips doesn't get out of the first or he doesn't get out of the second. And now your bullpen's absolutely taxed. You just killed your 22-year-old young starter's confidence. And, I just don't know if that makes the most sense. Next year seems to be more like the timeline.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to run through the video real quick. There we go.
So this was a sequence I really liked from Connor Phillips. When, his fastball is not one of the high carry fastballs. It was like to the degree of what it was when he was, in the Southern League where they were just riding. He gets good arm side run though. And it does have some sneaky carry. When he leaves it down though, it gets hit hard, but there's a lot of guys.
Before you go on, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to clarify one thing. Some people don't know what glove side and arm side run mean. So if you can just explain it. So the arm side, it's just an easier way to say left or right or a directional where it's easy no matter what the pitcher. So arm side run would obviously be his pitching arms. Like if you're looking at this on the right and to the left would be his glove side. The reason why I said this, somebody asked me about it recently and I thought, we say that often, but I don't know if we've ever really explained it.
Yeah. So of course, like if you're getting that run to your arm side, it's fading away from a lefty or running in on the hands of a righty. And that can be a good thing. You want movement and he gets the carry when he stays behind the ball. But even when he gets, over the side of it a little bit and it's more horizontal, that's a good pitch if it starts middle and breaks away, or if it starts outside and grabs the corner. Yeah. If it starts inside and runs over the middle, that's where you run into trouble. The problem with Phillips is, sometimes he's behind the ball and it's carrying up and it looks like he's back in the Southern League where he's getting 20 inches of induced vertical break. Other times he's over the side of it and it runs to his arm side. So either that results in more balls or more balls over the middle where he gets hit. And I have examples of both. This is an example of where it works well. He goes elevated. That just has a ton of carry to it, right? And now that sets him up nicely. This was strike number 2 in this at bat. So now that's in the back of this guy's head. He knows that Phillips loves his fastball. Phillips could go back to it.
Who is this guy?
I think it's Deshaun Kersey with the Twins. But off of that now, you have this breaking ball that just dives straight down. So you have to worry about this up here and look at like where that starts. And instead it stays up there. And then you got to worry about this, which starts, look at that, same spot, right under the home of. Looks like it's going to start at the same spot. Is it carrying upward or diving downward? It's diving downward. So for me, and I know this is the case with a lot of prospects, but I think more so Connor Phillips than a lot of others, that fastball command really sets the tone for everything else. Because for me, the fastball is very inconsistent. And when he's not spotting it, it's running away and things like that, I think the rest of his arsenal kind of suffers as a result. So when he can set the tone with that, that's where you start to see the 7, 8, 9 strikeout outings. Here's another one, Phillips sequence.
Yeah, and he also, that fastball high in the zone is something he goes to a lot. And that's kind of like his comfort. Whenever I watch him, he gets down 2-0 or 3-0 or whatever, like, it's a fastball coming in, and it's good enough to beat people at this level. I worry about getting to the majors and trying to fight back into counts with elevated fastballs. And, I don't know why first name came to my mind was Yordan Alvarez. Saying
just
buddy, throw it.
Yeah, no, and you're 100% right. And then also there's the world of I meant to go to the top of the zone. I tugged it down 2 balls, and it's kind of middle. Guy fouls it off because it's 98 and I'm in AAA or AA.
Yeah.
Big leagues, they don't get missed very often, especially when you're pitching in Great American Ballpark. So this is another sequence I really liked to Royce Lewis, who's been good on his rehab already with the Twins. First pitch, that's where you want that fastball living if you want to work downwards, right? And I don't know if that was his goal. The target's high, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's where they wanted it, because he brings the glove down, and when he brings it down like that, that kind of tells me he wants to frame upwards. So that really could have been the location they wanted. This is where you see the arm side run more. And I think he's got 2 variations of the fastball, whether it's intentional or not, where some are running like that and others are carrying. This is one that starts away and grabs the outside corner. Again, this sets up the next pitch, which his secondaries are really good. They're good, but they're a little bit inconsistent. And I have more confidence in him being consistent with the fastball and then, being fringy command-wise with the breaking ball. That's fine if you can set the tone with this fastball. This is the very next pitch. Again, Royce Lewis doesn't chase like that very often. The reason why he does is he just saw a fastball that started away, and look at where that starts, runs right back over the outside corner, right? So now he's thinking about that, like, man, I thought that was a ball that came back over. Now the next pitch, this one probably starts on the outside corner. You can kind of see right where we pause it, right under of again. And he's thinking, okay, this thing's going to run right back towards me. And instead, boom, dives away. And you get a really bad swing from Royce Lewis. That's another example of fastball setting the tone for Connor Phillips. I'll give you one example of why the fastball command is inconsistent, though. And this is a thing that, it's mechanical. And I think that's part of the reason why they might not bring him up either, is I think it's probably something that he's working on. I talk about some of the fastballs kind of running away from him. Look at his head here, and look at how he pulls off. So you have squared. Oh, sorry, a little laggy here. You got squared, and then you see him pulling off with his front shoulder. Ball kind of runs away from him that way. I didn't pull that many examples of this, but this happens far too often where, this is a 3-2 pitch. He's trying to challenge him with a fastball. He has an open base, so he's trying to make a pitch, but just gets away. And if I can pause it at the right spot.
Yeah, and we see that often when you watch him. He misses way too high in the zone, too, with the same ideas when he's trying to elevate that fastball and he opens up too quickly. And that's what I have been calling whenever I talk about him on Twitter. It's just uncompetitive pitches at times.
Yeah, there's a lot of non-competitive pitches from him where he's just pulling off, and you can see that. So if he can find some, and this is one where right here you can see the head's pulling off, arms lagging behind, and that's where it just flies out the other way. And then sometimes with the breaking balls, he's going this way, he tugs it the other way to his glove side. So that's the one thing. If the fastball command comes along, I think the secondaries are going to play up to plus pitches as well, and it could be game over from there.
Do you have any other video of him, or are we moving on?
We can move on to somebody else.
Rodriguez. Hector Rodriguez was number 13 on Baseball America. We'll talk about him in a minute. Any MLB prospect podcast, Phillips, and okay. This person had mentioned this on Twitter. They were going to ask about Phillips, who we just covered, but they want to, I believe Christian Roa, who was seen out of a relief role, I believe yesterday or today or whenever that was. Christian Roa is kind of falling down list. He was, I believe, a second round pick 2019, 2020, something like that.
Yeah.
Guy who every time I've watched him personally, I just never say wow. There's nothing that jumps out to me. It's pretty average. Like maybe he's a guy who can provide some depth in the org, but I personally don't see him as anything more than that. Aram, do you?
Just tonight, but probably tomorrow. Carlos Luna.
Sorry, I removed.
He's thinking Noah. Was that Marte?
Yeah. I was downloading Marte real quick. A really annoying swing. Yeah, I think there's a reliever role here, though. You got a mid-90 seater that'll probably play up to 96, 97. You have a slider that, when it's in the zone is good, but you look across his arsenal, 60% strike rate on his fastball, 54% strike rate on his slider, 52% strike rate on his curveball, and then a 56% strike rate on his changeup. He just doesn't really have that much confidence in any of his pitches. I think a reliever role makes sense for him because focus on the slider, learn to rip that first strike, fastball plays up, and go from there. But the command is definitely the biggest issue for him right now. Also, I just saw a comment, looking at Connor, probably won't be till 2025. No, I think you'll see Connor Phillips next year.
Yeah.
It's just whether he breaks camp or not. And, I just don't know if there's necessarily a rush. But yeah.
All right, here's the first, Hector Rodriguez intro, and we'll talk about him. Before we do, have you ever heard of this band Talking Heads, Aram?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just making sure.
I don't know. I couldn't name you a song, but I've heard of them.
Okay, I'm just making sure that you have. Great band. Hector Rodriguez has 15 home runs. What do you see his potential being if he continues to show average to above average power? Let's make this the Hector Rodriguez segment because I know a lot of people are interested in him.
Yeah, he's a tough one ceiling wise. Just because he's got some of the highest chase rates I've ever seen. In the lower levels, even he's chasing almost 50% of the time, which is absurd.
Imagine if he fixes that.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I've been waiting to imagine that for Ronnie Mauricio for 6 years now. But the swing is really impressive. The pull side power for a 19-year-old is really impressive. And I mean, I showed you some video when I was at your house. There's some like B swings that he takes, meaning like when you're fooled and it's not your best swing, you throw your hands out and just try to do something with the ball. Like he takes some of those swings and hits the ball out. Like there's some natural bat speed, but chasing at this degree, it's a double-edged sword because one side of it, it's like this guy expands the zone as much as anybody and he's only striking out 20% of the time. But the flip side of it is like he's in low A and he's expanding the zone as much as anybody. And, he might strike out a lot more at the next level. So he's going to have to cut down on the chase rate, I think, before people fully consider him like, a top 10 guy in the system. I think he has the talent to be. I think he has a ton of upside. But it's hard to get behind a 19-year-old who's swinging at 62% of pitches.
Yeah. And, when we were talking about him, one thing that I noticed from just watching him was, he's a kid. He is a kid. And half the time his motions weren't all in order. They weren't in sync. But that damn bat speed, man, allowed him to make up for his mistakes every single time, it seemed like, and push the ball, flare it over shortstop, even drive the ball out when he's kind of leaning out on his front foot instead of staying back. And if that can all click, and this is why I don't, people are like, let's call him up. Let's do this. Let's get him here, which is a natural thing for fans to do. But it's like, there's still a lot that needs to be fixed from just what we were watching and looking at, and but you can see the potential is there, and really, if anything, like hell of a job by Kroll, man, to ID
Yeah.
that, and that whoever is in charge of IDing that, whoever in their little team, that's a great get.
Oh, no matter what. Yeah. I mean, for what you gave up and what you get, Tyler Naquin to get him, it's unbelievable. And I'd say it's like in terms of approach and lack thereof, bat speed, ability, doesn't have the same frame, but I think there's some similarities to like a Jesus Sanchez, which if you're getting that kind of prospect who could be frustrating, but also exciting, again, that was a Tyler Naquin swap. I see a lot of Jesus Sanchez to Hector Rodriguez. So, which I think is a good and bad thing.
Before we get to the super chat, I want to read off these two nicknames for Luke Weaver: Puke Weaver or Luke Wavers. Which do you prefer?
Luke Wavers.
Luke Wavers. I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, super chat from Matt. Matt's supporting us, man. I love
thank
it.
you, man. Thank you. I appreciate you, Matt. Yeah, I don't know about a 60. I think that's a little lofty.
Just to give people an idea of, like, can you think of some 60 grade, not prospects right now, but players who are in the pros that maybe people can identify as, oh, that was a 60 grade hit tool, like just to give people an idea of what that's like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like who was a very easy 60 grade hit tool at the big league level.
What was Quan?
Oh, Quan was like 70, borderline
70.
80. Yeah. But like I'm trying to think of like a recent prospect because like 60 is tough. Like a plus hit tool in today's game is just hard to come by. I think people look at the swing because it's a left-handed swing that is very sweet and quick. I think that's part of the reason why people see, may slap a plus hit tool there, but I think there's a little bit more whiff within the zone than a guy that projects as a plus hitter. Of course you can make a jump in that regard, but it's kind of rare to see a major jump. I think he's an above average guy. Like right now he's an average hit tool. I think he can improve to above average, but I don't know if he's a 60. Like obviously Corbin Carroll was a 60, 70, 60/70, like pretty close to 70. Yeah. Gunnar was a 70. Or 60, I would say. Who else is somebody I'm trying to think that we could pull up from the last top 100 list, but it's lesser than people think. Alec Boehm was a 60.
Yeah.
Alec
Usually if you get the 60, you don't get the power grade. You know what I mean? Like there's
it's
few
rare. The elusive 60/60s are, some of the best prospects in the game. But I would say Alec Boehm's an example of a, 60 hit tool guy.
Well, let's talk about Jorge. Why? Because he was mentioned in the super chat. We'll go ahead and talk about him some. Second baseman, shorter guy, a smaller player, but somebody who's really been playing well. He's also played a little bit of center field recently,
which is interesting.
I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. Like, obviously, like if you can get a second baseman, a position that's not exactly a premier defensive position, and transition that into one of the most pretty premier defensive positions, you do that. We saw that with Jazz in Miami. I mean, mixed reviews, but
yeah,
that's
you got better process. Quick.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a great idea to do. Like he's a pretty good athlete. He's one of the more advanced prospects. You could argue he's the most advanced prospect on that team. Even when South Stewart was there, I think you can make the case that he was the most advanced prospect on that team. So, I think if you're going to try some positional experimentation, like he's the guy to do it with. He's a pretty decent athlete. Probably tells you a little bit about his defense at second. Like I don't think they're very married to it. So, I think that's part of it, but his swing is really pretty, man. Like I love the smooth load. He gets himself into a really good spot. I think he could be really good. The thing is he's not very big. And I think people actually kind of sleep on how not very big he is. Like he's
like 5'8", right?
Yeah. He's like 5'8", 5'9", 160 pounds. And, while the swing looks like, oh yeah, that could result in homers because it's like so smooth. And, you think of Robbie Cano or, any of the guys that kind of have that kind of load and swing. there's a lot to like there, but I mean, the exit velocities are definitely below average. Even his top end exit velocities are below average. And, you know, you have to wonder how much more projection there is on that frame. So there is the pressure on the 60 hit tool or the pressure to tap into more power. So he's kind of in a little bit of a tweener spot right now, which is my one concern. I think that may be part of the reason why they want him in center, can take some of the pressure off of the bat a little bit too.
Moving on, let's see. Lost my spot here. Okay, yeah, let's talk about Noelvi Marte. We've gone 45 minutes and haven't talked about him yet.
This is why Noelvi Marte irritates me more than any player, I think, in the minor leagues. He's up there, man. Like, not personal. It's like not personal. It's like you're so talented. You could be so good. Make an adjustment. And maybe it's just easier said than done. I'm just some like, you know, asshole sitting, you know, in my apartment saying, you know, use the field more, stop expanding the zone, like hit the baseball a different way. Like this dude's hitting balls 115 miles an hour. Who am I? But he could be so good. And he's still pretty like I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. The fact that he is productive despite his lack of approach and sometimes effort is just a testament to how naturally gifted he is. Because he a lot of the things that he does, most players are not getting away with. And this is just, it looks like I'm just picking one example. This took me 2 seconds to pick, and I could probably have found 25 other examples within the last 2 months. 1-0 count, nobody on.
To the bullpen.
What do you do here? What are you looking for? What's your plan? He swings at a fastball on a guy that's known to have a heavy fastball on the outer half and tries to pull it. And you just beat one straight into the ground. You get to hit. Great job. But like, this is where he drives me nuts because he has one of the biggest discrepancies in max exit velocity and average exit velocity, meaning that he so frequently does this or just weak contact that it's like, okay, power is great. He's a plus power guy. He's borderline plus. But if you're getting into it at a lower rate of consistency than almost anybody else with that kind of power, or even guys with less power, then I don't care that you can pop 115s if you're popping way more 72s straight into the ground. And this is a swing that like just really irritates me. I have a good one though. Oh, the Reds tied it.
To give you an idea of what type of player has the same type of average to max, Jake Fraley has one of the lowest average exit velocities in the entire major leagues and is in like the 76th percentile of max exit velocity. Yeah. Just to give you an idea of kind of what that type of profile looks like when that happens.
Yeah. And it's different when you're Fraley and you're lefty and, you know, you're speedy and not speedy-ish, but like just a different kind of player. Here's a swing I like, but even in this swing, his belt buckle will give you something away here. But here, like this is a fastball running in. He probably could have tried to pull this and demolish it pull side, but his plan here was to work the other way, or at least sort of looks like, and look how easy that is for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a laser beam over the right fielder's head. This guy has the bat speed to, if he's working, and I was just talking about this with Kobe Mayo of the Orioles, like he's always thinking line drive the other way, and then if he's early, he still pulls one out. If someone goes hard inside on him, he can still react and fight it off because he has great hands. Marte has great hands. Use that to your advantage. Instead, he's often looking to pull, and then anything that's away, there's just no way of being able to make up for that. Here, he stays back on one and drives it the other way. If he did this more frequently, I think he'd be one of the best prospects in baseball offensively. But even in this swing, look at his front side. Like he is fully gone still. Like it's just a habit that it's really hard for him to break. He keeps his hands back and still is able to make things work here. If he can repeat this kind of swing, he's a force. But it's just like, how long are we going to talk about this? He's aware of it. The Reds are aware of it. It's something he's been trying to work on, but I just don't know how much it translates into the game and how much it's on his mind in games.
Just Baseball is releasing the top 100 tomorrow, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us where Noelvi Marte is on that top 100?
In the 60-ish range.
60. You're going to get some haters, man. The chat's about to fill up with some haters. But hey, you laid it out. It's tough to argue. It is tough to argue. Now, let's talk about his defense. Everyone has this idea that Noelvi Marte is going to be a great defensive third baseman. Ellie De La Cruz is a great shortstop, and Matt McLean's a great second baseman. Best infield in the league, no matter what. This is awesome. I don't know where they're getting this idea that Noelvi Marte is a plus defender at third. Now, I haven't watched
because he moves off of short. That's always just like the conventional thought, right?
Yeah. And I haven't watched as much as some of these people who have said it. So I don't want to sound like I know everything, but I've watched probably 15 games of him playing third. And again, like it doesn't seem like an automatic, like I want him at third base next year and he's going to be this great defender. What do you think of his defense and where else do you think he could end up playing?
I don't think his defense is great. I think he can end up playing a little bit of first. I think he can be good enough to be an average third baseman, but with his footwork and kind of limited range, I think he's a guy that like he doesn't look that bad, when you're watching game to game, and then you go on Fangraphs and you see him just get demolished metrically. He kind of screams that to me. So he's got a good arm. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the outfield if they'd ever do that. I wouldn't mind seeing him at, like first. I don't like putting guys at first. I think he still moves well enough. Like there's a difference between footwork and being able to like run. I think he can cover ground in the outfield. I don't think his feet are ever going to work that well to put himself in good spots and, make the plays. So I'd rather see him in the outfield. I don't know if they'll do it. But worst case scenario, like I think he can be a fringy, fine defender at third and get you by.
Any other Marte before we segue into this next question?
No Marte.
What would you do with the outfield this offseason? So here's the outfield. TJ Friedl, Jake Fraley, Will Benson, all left-handed bats. And the question says, not sure how we can upgrade without trading one. Who would you sign to be the short side of the platoon? So paint the picture, right? Will Benson, good player, a lot of upside, athletic, still plenty of underlying concerns, not a completely proven player, lefty bat, most likely a corner. TJ Friedl, playing really well over the past calendar year, comes with limitations, pretty good defensively in center field, lefty bat. Jake Fraley, we know what he is, kind of power. He's actually improved defensively. Lefty bat. Like, what do you do?
I think something that fans love to do, and I watch Marlins fans do it this past year with pitching. We have, you always need something, right? Your team always needs something. Let's trade from the surplus. We don't need this extra guy. I think with the outfield situation, I want to see Benson get opportunities, but if you go into 2024 with Will Benson penciled in as your everyday outfielder without a decent contingency plan or platoon option, I think you're putting yourself you're leaving yourself exposed.
Yeah. You're rolling the dice.
I also think there's a level of redundancy with Friedl and Fraley. I know they're different, but like at the same time,
feelings are similar.
Yeah. It's just, I think you have to roll with those guys though, because I don't know if it's a matter of moving one of them. I think it's a matter of bringing in a right-handed hitting outfielder that can just play and go from there.
I think that they showed to an extent an idea when they signed Will Myers. If they sign a similar player but better, or it just works out better, Teoscar Hernandez was the first name that came to mind. Don't know if that's realistic, but you know what I'm saying. Like, get a proven guy who may just need a bounce back, who can be a starter. And keep in mind, Steer can play outfield. What if Marte moves to outfield or somebody else moves to outfield? There's never too many, and there's not like this set DH. Like, we don't have the.
That's what I was going to say. I'd just be looking for the best right-handed bat I can get.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not too worried about the outfield, but I do think that's a place where you can upgrade from Stuart Fairchild and now Louisville bat, if he reports. I don't know if he reported today or not. Nick Senzel, who has taken his full 3 days to report to Louisville. Yeah, I think you can upgrade from those type of players, and that's a spot that you can get somebody in the middle of the lineup if you need it. The Reds have some money. The free agent class isn't great, but you can pay Hunter Renfroe if you want to pay Hunter Renfroe.
yeah. Yeah. I
Moving,
think he'd hit a lot of bombs out there too.
he would be so fun, man. I kind of just want him to get a multi-year deal from somebody. I kind of feel bad for the
I
guy.
feel bad. That guy's been all over the map. Someone's giving him a multi-year deal.
We're getting some love from Talking Heads. Let's see. Yeah, Acuna and Rodriguez.
Too.
What's that?
I have some other video too. Want to do a little bit of that?
Yeah. Any other video you have? Throw it up.
Edwin Arroyo, I saw a question about like why he's slipping. And something we can talk about because I think he's kind of rebounded his stock a little bit. Regardless of that, like I think the bat's very limited, and that's part of it. But oh my gosh, is he a fun defender to watch? I have some defensive highlights that I think just kind of show you what he can be and how exciting he is. Look at his arm. This guy can be a really good shortstop. I don't like the bat that much. Also, that's Brock Wilkin, recent first-round pick. Yeah, that's just a nice play. I got another one coming up in a second here. That was really fun. Defense 2.
When all their
Ooh. Check this one out.
Those orange jerseys are slick.
He's just got great range. And there's another guy. It's like, all right, like, what are you going to do with him? Do you keep him? Is that a guy that could be like a nice trade chip for you eventually?
Here's the deal. He's been hitting well since, what was the date? I don't want to not give credit to who it was. Maybe it was Brandon or Bryce or somebody tweeted out like since May 9th, or Reds Daily maybe tweeted like since May 9th, he's been, like a 115 WRC plus, like a good player.
Yeah,
my thing pretty good bat with him, I've watched probably 20, 25 games this year, and I just turn on a random one. I have never, and it's not him as much as it is just random. Like every game I turn on, he's like 1 for 4, 0 for 4. Like I don't see him do many spectacular things at the plate. Now he does. There's games this week. He was 3 for 4 or 4 for 4 or whatever it is. I just did not happen to watch that game. But whenever I see him, like I rarely come away with there's some juice in this bat or man, something about him looks special at the plate. I think he's a good player. I think he'll be a solid player. I just don't see that jump to the next level of top 50 caliber or top 20 caliber type prospect ceiling, or like he's going to grow into this, next level prospect. I think he's going to be an everyday regular, but
yeah,
I just don't see it.
Yeah, if it was any other organization, I'm holding on to a Noelvi Marte, an Edwin Arroyo, because you need an everyday infielder. But this is the one thing that the Reds don't need at all, is a high floor everyday infielder. So I do wonder if he's a guy that gets moved eventually. He is improving his stock after adjusting the swing a little bit. Remember his setup used to be crazy open, and he'd like really get into it. To like close himself back off. And I just thought it was too many moving parts.
Popped a lot of balls straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. And now this move here, so much easier. And it's more powerful, and he stays in his lower half more. So I like this new setup. And I think it's going to help. I think it's going to help him offensively a lot. So that's definitely something that I think helps his long-term outlook. But I agree with everything you said. Like, this is a dude that you're not just going to trade him just to trade him, but I'm not afraid to move him in a big deal, because of all of the other guys that I have, right? If I'm Nick Krall, you have so many middle infielders. I think this is the one guy that, if he plays well next year and you want to buy, this is the guy that you can push the chips forward on and, go get an impactful piece.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. He's going to be a good player. I think that a lot of people get up in arms about prospect rankings. And as you know, prospect fatigue is a real thing. He's been on these lists for a long time, and he's still 19. He'll be on them for a couple more years. Like, players are going to get, the new shiny thing is undefeated. And that's
Mhm.
going to be moved up to the top of the list. And it's just more or less him getting bumped down because of that. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think he's a good player. But I have my own reservations about his ceiling.
Yeah.
Another super chat. Matt the Money Man.
That's the man.
Golden.
Thank you.
This guy's made of gold, man. Just throwing
Thank
money
you. I
around.
appreciate you. It
says,
yeah,
Aram,
I'll leave this to you, Clay. What are you seeing?
Aram, where do you see Ellie's strikeout percentage leveling out to? Man, I said this from before he got called up. He is going to piss you off a lot. But then he's going to get off one of his B swings and it's going to leave the ballpark. You're going to be amazed. He's going to steal 2 bases and make a great play at third. Like, that's just Ellie's game. I think he strikes out 28 or higher percent his entire career. Like, I don't think that he's going to be able to make the adjustments. The issue right now is low in the zone. He's swinging. Because, like you mentioned with Connor Phillips, where, in the minors, you miss a ball or two and you can kind of get away with it. Ellie was making you not get away with it in the minors when they missed their spots. He comes up, and that changeup, low and away from a righty, is falling off the table, and he's swinging through it. Or, an example. Yeah. I don't know exactly how many strikeouts he has against changeups, but that type of stuff is going to take adjustment. But even then, like, he's a free swinger, and he's swinging with a lot of power. Like, I think he's going to strike out a lot, and that is not the end of the world when you have someone this talented who can make up for it.
100%. And he's still figuring everything out. And I think the big thing also, there isn't like an egregious amount of whiff. This isn't a guy that's, you'll get the zone contact. It's not like he's whiffing with the worst of them. What I see is pitch recognition issues, and that comes from 2 things. One, Ellie, similar to O'Neal Cruz, those guys are tall with super long levers, which means the ball gets on them kind of quick sometimes. They can get long to the baseball. The same reason why they hit the ball 500 feet and hit the ball 120 miles an hour is the same reason why the ball can get on them quick and they can get tied up. When the ball gets on you quick and you get tied up, you have to make decisions a little bit earlier, right? I'm like, oh, that got on me. I was too late. Okay, I need to start my swing earlier. When you start your swing earlier, you don't pick the pitches up as well. So I think, Ellie started to get sped up a little bit with well-located heat. They were busting him inside. They were tying him up. And now I'm like, okay, I need to go get it. I got to start cheating. And when you start cheating, that spin that breaks to the bottom of the zone, it's already too late. You start your swing early, it's too late. So, by the time you recognize it's spin, you're swinging over it. So I think that's where he's at. It sucks that O'Neal Cruz got hurt because he was somebody that had the same exact problem. And then he worked through it. I think some of it is kind of getting yourself into your hitting position earlier. Like, Ellie's always been a guy with his moves are pretty loud. It's a hand pump. It's a big leg kick. Like, I think he's going to be somebody that's going to have to probably start himself a little earlier, whether that's starting his load earlier, whether that's quieting the moves and getting set earlier and just kind of putting himself in a position where he doesn't have to have all of these moving parts and he can see the ball a little bit more prematurely. I think that's going to be the difference. But when you're looking at the last 30 games, when the ball is in the zone, he's not getting blown up. So I'm not overly concerned. It's about the chase rates. It's about, the things we just talked about. And I think he'll come around. You got to give him at bats. That's what you got to do. Oh, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Muted. Sorry. I was muted. This is one thing that I don't want this to come off as condescending, but somebody asked about Blake Dunn. Would be great, but would you bring him up at a full-time position? I assume this means for next year. I think that the Reds, and it's hard for fans to adjust because this is what we've been for the past decade, is the Blake Dunns of the world, man. Let's give him the starting spot and let's just see what happens. Yeah. I think the Reds are
too good for that.
They're too good for that. These type of players, you can either move, you can keep them as depth, but the Reds have to eliminate the crossing our fingers players. And you have to go out and add established players to take this team from good to great. And Blake Dunn is a good player. I'm excited about him. I think he'll be a good major league player, but I think it's more important to find established players it just gives you a higher percentage chance of hitting and adding talent to your actual roster. And that's where the Reds are going to be for the next few years is, the fringe major leaguers And a guy like TJ Friedel, if he was a prospect this year, would have been traded this offseason or whatever. Those type of players, and it hit for the Reds, and it worked out. And you can say maybe that's Blake Dunn. The Reds are not in a position to find out. That's someone else's team to find out.
No doubt. No, I'm with you on that.
He said he was talking about Blake Dunn as a right-handed bat in the outfield. I think it's the same thing. Like, I want him more established.
I mean, the guys like that can force their way, but you got to make those guys force their way. You can't have a smooth path for a 25-year-old guy out of drafted in the 15th round to take the job. He's got to steal that job.
The Dodgers, a team that we should all look to for successful plans, they had some prospects coming up in the outfield. What did they do? Jason Hayward, David Peralta. They brought in JD Martinez to play DH. Like, you can add vets, and if it doesn't work, like, you can move on, like we saw from Will Myers. Like, or you can trade. It's more about creating depth instead of being one injury away. You're now 2 or 3 injuries away, or one slump away, one player not panning out away. Like, you just want to lessen the load on being one X, Y, or Z away from TJ Hopkins.
Yeah, well,
no offense, TJ Hopkins in your family.
It's double A though. It's like you can't, if you build your roster around the idea of, I'm just answering the 340 average is forcing pretty hard. If you build your roster under the idea or assumption that a guy swinging it well in double A is going to be a key contributor for your big league squad, you're leaving yourself very exposed on that roster. Like, you have to have that. You have to have a plan A, and ultimately the prospect is your plan B, especially with the way that the Reds have been playing and in the direction that they should be heading in, moving forward.
And if Blake Dunn is, what you may think
he 340 in trips and, keeps doing what he's doing, like, he's going to get
even then it's like, okay, then you could also trade him for somebody. Like, it's a good thing either way. Aram, I think we're getting close to wrapping up. I wanted to run through and make sure there's no names that we might miss. There is one right off the bat, Rhys Hines. Rhys Hines, we have not talked about. Chase Petty, I don't really know if we have much of an update on Chase Petty. I would love to, just to give everyone an idea of how much longer we'll go, probably 10 more minutes. I'd love to touch on Rhys Hines, and I would love to touch on any of the recent draftees. I know you've talked about them on the call-up and whatnot, so we don't need to go too deep into them, but Rhys Hines has went from striking out like 40% of the time, looking like borderline non-prospect, to suddenly turning it around. And what does he have, 18 home runs, something like that now? I'll pull it up right now, but
it's crazy, dude.
Rhys Hines, just to give everyone an idea, in the past like month and a half has gone nuclear. However, 124 WRC plus, 19 home runs, 77 RBIs, 13 stolen bases. Strikeout percentage, 34.8. Last year, 39. I mean, he's been around over 30.
How about the last 35 games? 370, 454, 819 slash. That's a 1273 OPS, 10.5% walk, 25% K, 14 homers in that span, 13 doubles. That's 28 extra base hits in 35 games. I tried to find a tangible swing adjustment, and I don't see anything big. There could be something that he changed that we can't see, like guys that are, trying to like coil more, and you can get feels.
A timing mechanism that's hard to tell.
But I don't see a tangible change. But he could be putting way more force into his back hip. He could be doing all of these different things that we can't see with our eyes. Like, that's the hard part about it, especially for big dudes. I mean, Rhys Hines looked dead in the water, I'm not going to lie. But this guy's 20, not even 23 years old yet. It's not like he's doing it. If he was doing it in high A, I'd say, yeah. But he's doing it in double. The exit velocities are nuts. The game power is crazy. He's, kind of he's hitting his way back into prospect relevancy. And there's no other way to say it. Like, you can't really diminish what he's doing. Even with the issues, with making contact in the past. Over this 35 game sample, it's a small sample size, but the whiff hasn't been that bad. 81% zone contact. That's like about average. Chase rate's still kind of high at 33%, but again, it's getting better. And he's hitting the snot out of the ball. things have clicked for this guy, and I'm interested to see if it continues, but he's 100% played his way into prospect relevancy. He's cut the chase rates, he's improved his contact rates, and he's hitting the ball hard.
One player that you were going to get exhausted by is this 17-year-old the Reds recently signed, Sheng-In Lin. From, I believe, I don't want to get this wrong. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. He is from International Signing Free Agency, I believe, Japan. Either way, Aram listed as a shortstop, outfielder, pitcher. So you know the Shohei comps are coming. He's 17, so you look forward to about 5 years of discussion around him coming. Number 27, I believe, in the Reds. 20. He's moved up to number 20 in the Reds updated system on Pipeline. Oh gosh,
Already getting hype.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know a thing about him. He doesn't even have a picture, which like makes it even funnier. Like this guy just like signed
A mystery.
He signed late, like no picture. Like we don't know anything about him, and he's from Taiwan. Thank you, Mr. Wan. And no one knows anything about this guy, but we just love the little multiple positions next to him with pitcher thrown in there, and everyone's like, jazzed. But okay, quickly, I think Red Lauder we know enough about. We've heard enough about. We've read enough about. I just want you to give us quick little. I don't even know how to say this guy's name. Shortstop Sammy Stafora. Is that his name?
Sammy Stafora.
Stafora. Yeah. What can you tell us about him right now? He is in the rookie league right now for the Reds. I know that he's a shortstop. I know that some people are excited about him. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have some growing pains. He's super raw, but the glove is really good. Super fast. He's gonna have to adjust because he was a Northeast high schooler. Usually the competition's not nearly as good. So yeah, he was probably just feasting on some weak competition. Now he goes to the rookie league and he's getting blown up. But I think he's going to be a good player. I think he's a fun prospect where you've got above average defense plus speed. He's filling out physically and the bats continue to come along. I think he could be exciting. It's early. There's only so much that I've been able to see, but you got to be patient with him. Like it's going to take a while. Like he might have some ugly numbers this year, and that's okay.
Two questions, and then I'm going to ask the last question.
Okay.
That's the privilege I get. And it's not a zing or anything. When's the Reds top 10 list coming out? Was just asked. Do you have a date?
I think all the team top 10s will probably come out in the off season. Top 100 updates going to come out. And I think towards the end of the season and moving forward, we'll be churning out the team top 10s through the rest of the year and then into the playoffs and off season. So I'd say, or maybe around the postseason time, maybe a little bit earlier.
Can you just give us a top 5 if you had to do it right now? And you can be wrong. You can want to change it in an hour. I don't care. Just give the people something.
It's tough.
You would probably go Marte 1, right?
Yeah, you still got to go Marte 1. I'd go Marte 1, Lauder 2. I'm still like, I think people are looking at the stat lines too much. With lower level guys. Collier's got to be number 3. 4 is
Arroyo.
Arroyo or Connor Phillips. I think 4 is Arroyo, 5's Connor Phillips.
All right, there we go, everyone. Write it down. Call him out on it. All right.
6, Ricky Karcher.
Yes, so Ricky Karcher. What pitcher in last year's draft do you like the most besides Lauder?
And Skeens, of course, besides Skeens.
I think he meant within the Red system. The only other one that was drafted, in the first 2 rounds was Ty Floyd, I believe.
That was Hunter Hollan.
Oh, he was drafted. What round was that? 3rd round. Yeah. Okay. Tell us about him.
Yeah. So Hollan's interesting.
He's a lefty, right?
Yeah, he's a lefty, 6'5". It's like a kind of a fun, interesting project. Sinker slider guy, so it should be fun to kind of see, what they can get here. I don't know a ton on him, and I think there's a lot of reliever risk here, and that's kind of what he was used as Arkansas. So at Arkansas, so this is a bet on the Reds pitching development. He's like upper 80s, low 90s. it's going to be an interesting project. So I think it was more of a data darling type pick, like projectability, super tall, long, lanky, funky release point, high 3/4 from the left side, and see what you can get here. I think they felt like at least they're getting, a reliever in some capacity, but maybe they can develop him into a starter. He had a couple lights out outings this past year, but also had some rough ones. So bit of a project, but we'll see. It's a betting on the pitching development, I think.
My last question before we let you go enjoy whatever people do on Sunday nights besides
I got to finish the top 100 right after this.
Oh gosh. Well, just go ahead and run through all of them for us. How about that?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah. My last question is, so the Reds drafted a few starting pitchers that were all college arms somewhat early. When I say somewhat early, top 5 rounds or whatever. Is this a position where they could be moving? And I guess my question is, do teams do this? Where is it just we're going to take the best arm that we think? Or is it really a position where it's like maybe they're willing to move somebody in that, year or less of service time and, close to major league type prospect arms in an offseason deal, and they can just kind of replace them with somebody in a similar level? Like if I'm trading a guy in AAA or AA that's a starter in the offseason for an established ace, let's just say, or number 2 or whatever it may be, man, I'm going to load up heavy in the draft with college arms that are close. Is that reasonable? Is that something that you think actually happens, or do you think it's just coincidence?
I think so. By the way, also, I wanted to mention, I love Ty Floyd.
Yeah.
So I forgot about Ty Floyd. That's a dude, like his fastball, he could be cut from like a Bryce Miller cloth. His fastball is unreal. Crazy ride. I think floor of a high leverage reliever, but I think his stuff's going to be good enough. He could be that Bryce Miller type cloth, which is really fun. That's a guy I really like. I think for them, I think that they felt that they needed pitching. I think that we're seeing college pitching. If you need pitching in your system, I like the approach. If you have, college guys on your big board, going the college route, because to your point, if a high school guy flames out, usually like they don't even give you org depth. Like you're trying to put up with horrible outings for them, and just trying to see if they can figure it out. College guys, for the most part, like even if they don't reach their 60th or 70th percentile outcome, their median outcome is still something like, an org guy, depth starter, quadruple A type guy. It's a higher floor. And I think the Reds want to build pitching depth, and I think this was one way to do it. They still got some upside because I think Floyd has that big upside, but then they went and got some college arms too. Schoenwetter is also kind of an upside guy. So I thought they mixed it around. I think a lot of the time, dude, the college arms are just a way of hedging risk around
this. This is a good reason why Aram a lot of times is careful with comps. Mr. Juan, Bryce Miller comp. No, Bryce Miller fastball comp, not entire pitcher comp, fastball comp. Got to be careful with those words. Aram, any other thoughts on the Reds prospects before we let you out of here?
No, I'm excited to update the top 10, top 15. We'll get that, in the next month or so. And looking forward to doing that. And we'll definitely do something together for that when that comes out too.
4 Reds on the top 100, 3 Reds on the top 100. Give us something.
Should be 3 or 4.
We'll talk after this, man. We got to get 6. Mr. Juan says Ricky Karcher 1, Austin Hendricks 2, Chucky Robinson 3, and I can't complain.
That's a guy who gets it. That's a guy who gets it. Well, Clyde, thanks for putting this together, man. Looking forward to doing it again when we update the Red system relatively soon.
Awesome.
Peace.